Imagine this. You are driving along the smooth tarmac toward Nairobi, the city skyline rising in the distance like jagged metal spears piercing the sky. Traffic slows as you approach the bustling Syokimau Railway Station, trains gliding in on gleaming tracks, announcements echoing in English and Swahili, commuters rushing with phones in hand and briefcases swinging. The name Syokimau flashes on digital boards, a modern echo in a world of concrete and steel. But pause for a moment and listen closely, because long before these iron paths were laid, before the first locomotive's whistle tore through the silence of the plains, before pale-skinned strangers ever stepped foot in these lands, a woman from the Iveti Hills already saw it all. Centuries ago, in the rolling green ridges near what we now call Machakos, a mysterious Kamba prophetess named Syokimau stood alone under an acacia tree, eyes wide with visions no one else could fathom. She had no known mother or father, no clan to claim her. Legends whisper she sprang forth from the earth itself or was gifted by the spirits when a benevolent Maimu entered her as a young girl during a fierce storm. Her people revered and feared her in equal measure. She healed the sick with ancient herbs, warned of Maasai raids before the first spear glinted on the horizon, and foretold victories in battles yet to be fought. Yet her greatest visions were the ones that chilled the elders around the evening fire. Strangers with skin like peeled cassava arriving from the great waters in massive canoes, carrying sticks that spat fire and death. A monstrous iron snake, longer than any river, breathing smoke and flame as it crawled inland from the coast, slicing through hills and valleys without ever tiring, pulling wagons full of people and goods without oxen or men to drag them. She described pale men speaking in strange bird-like tongues, fire carried in their pockets like magic, tall buildings scraping the clouds, and a world turned upside down where land would be claimed and traditions shattered. The Kamba listened in awe and disbelief. How could such impossible things come to pass? Some called her mad, others a true oracle sent by Ngai. But time proved her right. The iron snake became the Uganda Railway, snaking its way exactly as she described. And today, that very station bears her name, a living monument to the woman who saw tomorrow when everyone else saw only today. Syokimau wasn't just a prophetess. She was a warning, a guardian, a voice from the ancestors, reminding us that some eyes see far beyond the horizon. So the next time your train pulls into Syokimau station, remember, you are not just arriving at a stop. You are stepping into the fulfillment of a vision spoken under the same African sun by a woman whose spirit still watches over these hills. The early life of Syokimau remains shrouded in the mists of Kamba oral tradition, a tale passed down through generations around flickering evening fires in the Iveti Hills. Born in the early 1800s, or perhaps even earlier, as some elders insist, long before the first white men appeared on the horizon, she emerged into a world where the Akamba people lived in harmony with the land, herding cattle across the rolling grasslands, forging iron tools in smoky smithies, and trading ivory and honey with distant tribes. The Iveti Hills, rising like ancient guardians near what would one day become Machakos, were her cradle. Steep ridges cloaked in green acacia and thorny bush, where mist clung to the valleys at dawn and the wind carried the distant lowing of goats and the rhythmic chants of warriors practicing with spears. What sets Syokimau apart from ordinary folk is the profound mystery of her origins. No one could name her mother or father. No clan claimed her as kin. Whispers among the elders spoke of her not being born in the usual way, but springing forth fully formed from a great fig tree or a sacred grove, as if the earth itself had opened to release her. Some said she was sent directly by Ngai, the supreme creator, or that she was a child of the spirits placed among the people for a purpose only the ancestors understood. In a society where lineage and clan ties defined everything, from marriage to inheritance to protection in raids, her lack of roots made her both intriguing and unsettling. Children pointed when she passed, women hushed their gossip, and men watched her with a mix of awe and caution. Yet she grew up among them, learning the ways of the land, how to read the stars for rain, which roots healed fever, and the songs that honored the departed. Her childhood was quiet at first, marked by the ordinary rhythms of Kamba life, fetching water from the streams that wound through the hills, helping tend the millet fields, and listening to the stories of elders under the moon. But even then, signs appeared. As a young girl, perhaps no more than 12 or 13, she wandered alone into the hills during a fierce thunderstorm. Lightning split the sky, rain lashed the earth, and thunder rolled like the drums of war. According to the legend, it was here that a benevolent Maimu, a protective spirit of the ancestors, entered her. Some accounts describe it as an attack, others as a gentle possession. Either way, the spirit chose her vessel. When the storm passed, she returned to the village changed. Her eyes held a distant light, and words came to her that no child should know. She spoke of a coming raid by Maasai warriors before the scouts had even spotted their dust on the horizon. The elders, skeptical at first, sent warriors to prepare, and when the attack came exactly as she described, and the Kamba drove them back with minimal loss, whispers turned to reverence. From that moment, her gifts unfolded like a flower after rain. She began healing the sick with knowledge that seemed to come from beyond herself, mixing herbs, chanting incantations, laying hands on fevered children until their breathing steadied. Small prophecies followed, a drought that would spare certain fields if rituals were performed, a bountiful hunt if the hunters honored the spirits properly. People sought her out cautiously, bringing offerings of milk or honey, asking for guidance on marriages, disputes, or journeys. Yet she remained apart, living in a simple hut perched high on the hillside, away from the main villages. She never married, bore no children. Her life was devoted to the visions that visited her in dreams and trances. The community both protected and feared her. Protected because her warnings saved lives, feared because such power could bring misfortune if mishandled. In those early years, Syokimau was still finding her voice, learning to interpret the flashes of the future that came unbidden, building the foundation for the greater prophecies that would one day echo across time and earn her a place among Kenya's most legendary figures. As Syokimau's gifts matured in the years following her spirit encounter, she rose swiftly from a mysterious young girl to the most revered figure in the Iveti Hills and beyond. Word of her accuracy spread like wildfire across the Kamba villages. A fever-stricken child, given up for lost by the healers, breathed easy after she pressed a poultice of rare roots to his chest and murmured ancient incantations under the stars. A herd of cattle, feared stolen in the night, was recovered intact because she had warned the owners of the exact path the thieves would take. Her hut, perched like an eagle's nest on a rocky outcrop overlooking the valleys, became a place of pilgrimage. Men and women climbed the steep paths at dawn, carrying calabashes of fresh milk, bundles of honey, or woven baskets of millet as offerings, not out of obligation, but out of deep gratitude and quiet awe. She was no ordinary healer. Her medicine blended the practical wisdom of the land with something otherworldly. She knew which leaves eased labor pains, which barks banished headaches, and which combinations of herbs could draw out poisons from arrow wounds. Yet her true power lay in the visions that came unbidden,
flashes of the future that arrived in dreams, during trances induced by the smoke of sacred herbs, or even in the quiet moments when she stared into the distance, eyes unfocused as if peering through time itself. The elders began to consult her formally, gathering under the great fig tree in the village center when important decisions loomed. "Will the rains come early this season?" they asked. "Shall we send warriors to trade in the east?" She answered not with riddles, but with clarity that left no doubt. Her most celebrated role, however, was as guardian against raids. In those turbulent times, the Kamba faced constant threats from neighboring peoples, the fierce Maasai from the south, sweeping down with their long spears and cattle lust, or the Gikuyu from the north, ambushing in the forests. Syokimau's warnings became legendary. One dry season, she roused the villages at midnight, her voice cutting through the darkness. "The red warriors come at first light from the direction of the rising sun, seeking our heads." The men armed themselves, set ambushes along the known paths, and when the Maasai appeared exactly as she described, dust clouds announcing their approach, the Kamba were ready. Spears clashed, shouts echoed across the hills, but the defenders held firm, driving the raiders back with fewer losses than any previous skirmish. The survivors returned to their villages laden with stories. Syokimau saw it before our scouts did. Gratitude poured in. Young warriors left offerings at her door, and mothers named their daughters after her in hope of inheriting even a fraction of her strength. Not everyone accepted her without question. Jealous medicine men whispered that her power came from dark sources, that no woman should wield such influence over warriors and elders. Some called her a witch, fearing that her trances invited malevolent spirits rather than benevolent maimu. Yet, time and again, her prophecies proved true. When she foretold a victorious raid against a rival group, naming the exact day, the number of cattle to be captured, even the color of the lead bull, the Kamba followed her counsel, and the outcome matched her words perfectly. Her reputation grew until even distant villages sent messengers seeking her insight on marriages, disputes, or the safety of long journeys. Through it all, Syokimau remained humble and solitary. She never sought wealth or status. Her life stayed simple, tending a small garden of medicinal plants, brewing herbal teas over a 3-stone fire, and retreating into silence when the visions overwhelmed her. She spoke softly, her words measured, yet when prophecy stirred within her, her voice carried the weight of thunder. People noticed how she aged slowly, as if the spirit sustained her, and how her eyes held a perpetual depth, reflecting sights no one else could see. By her prime, she had become more than a healer or seer. She was the oracle of the Kamba, a living bridge between the seen world and the unseen, whose counsel shaped the fate of entire communities. And as the mid-1800s dawned, the visions that visited her grew darker and more expansive, reaching beyond local raids toward horizons no one yet imagined. Strangers from across the great waters, iron paths that would carve the land, and a tide of change that would test the soul of her people like never before.